Yeah, that
And
sounds
like, I
about
don't know if
right.
I want that in my D&D campaign. I kind of want to escape that for a little bit.
The magical realm where people see a problem and work to fix it together.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone comes together for the greater good and like trust the experts and the people who know what they're talking about to fix the problem, and everyone's better off for it. Yeah. Yeah, can we play that game instead?
Nope. Sorry, wrong fantasy.
Welcome to Monsters and Multiclass, your Dungeons & Dragons fix. I'm Ellie.
I'm Jared Bornigal.
And I'm Will Meldon.
And on this episode, we are taking a look at the Allip. I hate it. We were like calling this like the Leap, the Allip, something like that. Allip, the official pronunciation that's like read by somebody within D&D Beyond is Allip.
It feels like a mother who wanted to name her child like Alexander, but wanted to be like really, really fancy with it. So it's just like, his name is Allip. Get out of here. Just call him Al.
Allip. Yep, Allip. That hard.
Allip is what I'm probably going to stick with. And if it's wrong,
Allip.
That's fine.
Yeah, hard, nasally, A. It's Anyways, it's a great start.
That's not why we're here.
No, they're really cool though. Yeah, Allip, they're a type of undead. They're kind of like ghosts. They come about when it says a mind uncovers a secret that a powerful being protected with a mighty curse. The result is often the emergence of an Allip. Secrets protected in this manner range in the scope from a demon's lore true name to the hidden truths of the cosmic order. It basically just rends their mind and destroys their soul and transforms them into these entities of just kind of pain and despair. And so they can't spread this knowledge to others and to try and the idea of the curse is preventing others from seeking it. The Allips then they're racked with so much pain that they're kind of just become these evil entities that roam the earth and attack others. But they also try to desperately pass on the secret that it knew, but it can't just directly tell people. It will try and do things where kind of like imparting bits of it to impart the bit of madness onto somebody else, or it will actually stalk research and stuff like that. Wizards is real common for to get like an Allip in their tower and kind of stalk them and manipulate the research to impart this cursed knowledge into their research to then hopefully be discovered by them. And if they discover it, it sets the old one free and this new one becomes an Allip. Pretty cool creatures overall. I think that's a cool concept. There's a lot you could do with that before even getting into the stat block.
Yeah, no, there's a ton you can do. I mean, I think that what you said is a setup right there. A wizard finds that they have some evil entity stalking them in their tower and hires out some adventurers to smoke it out. Or any type of scholar. It doesn't need to be a wizard. It could just be somebody who does research of any sort.
Right.
So, I mean, hey, that's an easy hook right there.
Right. Yeah, or during like combat when an Allip seeks to relieve the burden by sharing its secret. The creature can impart only a shard of the knowledge that doomed it, but that piece is enough to rack the recipient with temporary madness. The survivors of an Allip attack are sometimes left with a compulsion to learn more about what spawned this monstrosity, which could lead them down this really dangerous path. I think that's something really cool to do to your PCs.
Yeah. I mean, that could be the
especially
start of something even bigger if you wanted it to.
Yep.
In that regard, if the piece of information has to do with a demon lord, which I'll say because we recently did an entire section on demon lords, multiple episodes covering them. They have a true demon lord's name, and now the party begins somebody in the party gets obsessive about researching demon lords, and maybe this particular one, and find out, hey, looks like they're trying to come to the material plane, and we need to do something about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the type of thing I think you would want to talk to a player beforehand or the whole party beforehand to get them to buy in to kind of like play that up. Do like a session of just kind of typical D&D stuff to like establish who the characters are, then have an Allip attack in like the second or third one, and then to have one player, one PC get infected with that madness, and you've already talking to them, and they fold it into their character, that kind of drive to discover this.
Yeah.
I almost used these against you guys. So you remember in the the little mini campaign I just ran for you, the very first thing when you just kind of randomly got attacked by this ghost thing,
Yep.
it was an Allip.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was. It totally was. I had it was kind of like I didn't have a fully formed thing. It was like, okay, we're probably going to be doing a bunch of time skips and different cool things, and we'll kind of keep coming back to this. And so this will be pinned for later of why the hell there's an Allip here. And then I was maybe going to have somebody like get the seed of information. I decided like, nah, I don't want to do that. We had more interested with like the political intrigue stuff going on, and I was thinking of going down the route of like there's something that's going to doom the city you're in, and that's the information it found or whatever, and you have to stop it. It's like, no, I like the smaller scale stuff that we ended up doing, so I just kind of abandoned it, and it was just this weird random ghost attack that made no sense.
That makes me feel
So
a
sorry
little
about
bit
that.
better because I was really curious. I was just like, wow.
Do you think you missed something?
Well, yeah, I was like, man, I can't believe this ghost attacked us. Like, that seems like it's very, very foreshadowing. I mean, like, what else to say about it? A ghost randomly attacks us in this otherwise unghosted area. No, okay, you just dropped
That's the
plot
term
hook. That's
for it,
fine.
unghosted area.
You heard me. You heard me.
Yeah, I just decided to drop the plot thread.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It happens. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I've dropped more plot threads than you all know about because, well, really, because you guys weren't interested in them, and that's okay. Like as
Right.
when you're making campaigns, you very often will just kind of throw little things out there, and as long as you don't trap yourself by writing out the entire, arc of it and how it's going to resolve and everything, you see what players get interested in. I'm sure that if after we got back, we were like, we need to figure out this ghost thing. This is the most important thing that has happened to us. I don't even care about our current job. You probably would have been like, okay, they're really interested in this. Let me keep it going. But
ironically, that feeds directly back into the concept of the Allip. We're like,
how so?
Foisting the mechanics onto ourselves. Like, we got to figure out the secret of this ghost.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We didn't even...
Well, let's talk about the stat block because I've got some thoughts around how that does play out and doesn't play out, and things you can do. So take it away.
Yeah, the Allip is a challenge rating 5, medium undead, armor class of 13, hit points of 40, so walking speed of 0 feet, but it has a 40-foot fly speed, and it can hover. Strength of -2, dex +3, con of 0, intelligence +3, wisdom +2, and charisma +3. And then it has additional saving throws of its intelligence of a saving throw +6 and wisdom +5. In skills, perception, and stealth +5 and 6. We talked about this last monster. Everything seems to have those, especially perception, but whatever. Damage resistances to acid, fire, lightning, thunder, as well as bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, and full-blown immunities to cold, necrotic, and poison. So most things.
Yeah.
Let's hear. It had psychic, nothing against psychic. Is that it? Force.
Radiant.
Yeah.
Radiance, right? Yeah. Okay. So it's 40 hit points could very easily feel like 80. Something to keep in mind. Damage immunities to... Oh, I already said that. Sorry. Condition immunities to charmed, exhausted, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, and restrained. Pretty typical stuff for these kind of like incorporeal creatures like ghosts and things like that. Since dark vision 60 feet, passive perception 15, languages, any language, and new in life. And then it has incorporeal movement that Allip can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. It takes 1d10 force damage if it ends its turn inside an object. Again, typical ghost shit. Then it has actions.
That's how we can just summarize this chapter on the podcast. Just typical ghost shit. And now for its actions.
Right. It does not have multi-attack or anything like that, so keep that in mind. It has 3 separate actions, meaning on its turn it can do one of these things. Maddening Touch is its typical melee spell attack, +6 to hit, reach of 5 feet, 46 +3 psychic damage, average of 17. It initially seems like a really heavy hit, like seeing an attack at challenge rating 5 that's 46 +3, but most other things have multi-attack, and so they're doing 2 attacks, and so I think an average of 17 kind of works out. That's nothing too crazy.
Yeah, the only thing that'll make it pretty bad is I guess we'll get to it, but there's a way that it can stun a creature, and then afterwards, if it's doing this maddening touch and getting, advantage and potentially critting, okay, yeah, then that's a lot, but I guess that really just... That's everything. If you crit, it might hurt a lot. Okay.
Right. Yeah, stunning doesn't guarantee crits. It's not paralyzed. right, then it has Whispers of Madness. The Allip chooses up to 3 creatures it can see within 60 feet. Each target must succeed on a DC 14 Wisdom save, or it takes 1d8 plus 3 psychic damage. It must use its reaction to make a melee weapon attack against one creature of the Allip's choice that the Allip can see. Constructs and undead are immune to this.
See, that stuff is more likely to lead you to a TPK than anything
Yeah.
else. I mean, just
Yes.
taking control of the barbarian and the fighter and being like, hey, you two fight each other. Just and it's not even limited. Like once you succeed, this doesn't happen again. It can do that
Right.
every single turn and do this 1d8 psychic damage plus 1d8 plus 3 psychic damage and make them attack each other. And use their reactions up, which
Right.
means it kind of has freedom to move wherever it wants.
Right. Yeah, keep in mind that it doesn't take up their turn. Just it's the reaction, it's one attack, so they can still act normally on the turn. And it doesn't have movement. It doesn't sound like it makes them move. So if your party spreads out,
Yeah,
it's
that's
nothing to hit. I don't think I actually really got a chance to use this when I threw it against you guys because you guys didn't know about it. You just kind of got lucky, and we're not standing next to each other, so it just didn't come up a lot. And then Howling Babble, which is a recharge 6. The recharge abilities, so the creature generally starts his turn with it, or starts the combat with it. When they use it, then at the beginning of every turn, they roll a d6. And in this case, since it's recharge 6, if they roll a 6, they get it back and can use it again. So Howling Babble, each creature within 30 feet of the Allip that could hear it can make a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, a target takes 12, 2d8 plus 3 psychic damage, average of 12, and is stunned until the end of its next turn. On a successful save, it takes half as much damage and isn't stunned. And constructs and undead are immune.
So, I mean, it's pretty strong.
Good
Stunned
AoE,
is bad. The fact that, you can't move for... You basically lose your turn and all attacks have advantage against you. It can be bad since this thing doesn't have multi-attack. That loses a bit of its oomph.
Mm-hmm. And then especially because it's stunned until it's the end of its next turn. On a failed save, the target is... So basically, they lose a turn and then they're unstunned. Which means
Right.
the Allip won't have a chance to go again. So it can't follow up on that and get its advantage.
It can if the initiative order... Oh, no, I guess you're right.
No, it can't.
Yeah, no, you're totally right.
Right. So there would need to be other things with it, but this is very much a solo creature. It doesn't make a lot of sense for there to be other things except for maybe another Allip.
So I actually looked into that as well because I think that's really important. Because in D&D, just single enemies never turn out to be particularly difficult fights. I know that's no hit at when you threw it at us. That wasn't supposed to be a difficult fight. It was a learn your character fight.
Yes.
And I guess a foreshadowing fight that got dropped. So
Yes.
Willow Wisps are actually perfect for this as a thing to be around an Allip. Willow Wisps are challenge rating 1, and they specify in their lore that they feed off of, fear and despair. So to me, it makes a bunch of sense that a Willow Wisp or Willow Wisps would be surrounding these types of creatures in order to feed off of their despair. Then, if somebody is attacking the Allip, then that's a big sign for the Wisps to say, hey, you're taking our main food source, more or less, and then attacking them as well. So Willow Wisps, I think, would make a lot of sense.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, they're challenge rating 2,
Definitely.
apologies. Now, this isn't the Willow Wisp episode, but just something to keep in mind is Willow Wisp also have this whole consume life ability, which is like as a bonus action, when a target is at 0 HP, the target makes a DC 10 con save, and if they fail, they just die, and they regain 3d6 HP. So, maybe don't use that if you're not trying to be a jerk. That's a strong way of putting it, but just keep that in mind. They're very good if you just use their base actions, and you definitely can, and just get some nice, other creatures on the battlefield.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I like that throwing Willow Wisp at him.
But otherwise, totally agree. Nothing makes sense.
I mean, I guess kind of anything that sort of feeds off of that could work. I mean, and the mechanics of it kind of hint at having constructs and undead around because they're immune to all of this thing's AoEs.
I guess. I don't know if that's the intent. I think the intent is just that those things don't have souls, so they can't be affected by it.
Right.
I'm just imagining an Allip with a bunch of Modrons just wandering around it. But, like zombies, other ghosts, that's fine. I don't see any reason why you couldn't.
I mean, you could just use it as a stronger ghost
The
too. Like if
Allip?
you want to throw if you want to throw the flavor out, you wouldn't have to change a thing about its stat block.
Yep, I'd agree with that. Which actually brings me to something that's mentioned in the lore, the idea that it's kind of assumed that these whispers of madness and the howling babble, these are the things that it uses to infect the creature's minds. And, it goes so far as to say that after a confrontation with one of these creatures, somebody's basically infected with the madness as well. Obviously, a good time to use madness if you're using madness. But beyond that, I wish there was something in the mechanics that talked about a way to implant the seeds of knowledge desire in here. But everything that it talks about is like, you're stunned until the end of your next turn, and that's it. That's where it ends.
Right.
If something that you could add, if you wanted to use this as your bigger plot hook or just a larger character effect, is like, if you fail the howling babble, then you're infected with a temporary madness, or I don't know, long-term madness, infinite madness. I don't really care. Doesn't even need to be madness. Just you are now compelled to seek out a piece of information. And obviously, as the DM, you have that information pre-prepared,
Right.
and give them like a tiny little hint towards it and see what they do with it. And I think that could be a really interesting way to choose which PC gets infected by that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, that sort of thing of imparting that forbidden knowledge and stuff kind of already, you kind of get in there, we've hinted at it before, is the really good kind of like plot hook into the big campaign. Like if you're running that sort of campaign where you have like the big story arc, instead of somebody just like walking up and telling them and like hiring the PCs, it's like they're attacked by an Allip and that information gets imparted, and it would I think be a really good way of setting the tone if it's like a darker kind of horror campaign where you play it up where like they're all then like kind of racked almost like in this pain from like this knowledge they're trying to get their head around but don't understand, and they just intrinsically know they have to seek this further.
Right.
Like the world is at stake.
And the first part of the arc is really easy to rip off of a little indie game known as Mass Effect, because that's literally what happens to Commander Shepard. I mean, they go
at the beacon,
at the very, very beginning, they interact with some piece of technology that imbues them with these horrible visions that they feel compelled to learn more about and be like, no, this is a problem. Hey, everybody. Hey, waving my hands here. This is an issue. And everyone's like,
right.
No, it's not. You're losing your spaghetti and you need to stop.
Right.
And I think that's very much how it would feel as these low-level adventurers are going around saying, the sky is falling. Look at these writings I found. And it's just, horrifying scribblings. They're like, what are you talking about? But then finally, the second arc is when things start to emerge and everyone realizes, oh, this thing that this group of adventurers has been screaming about for a couple months is very real, and they are the only ones who have any insight into it. So let's start listening to them. And I mean, it writes itself.
Yeah. I mean, so I really did enjoy Mass Effect, but there was always the aspect of it that kind of got me depressed. And I don't know if I want to bring it to the D&D campaign. you understand, like with Mass Effect, Reapers and all of that, and the galaxy's reaction to them, and then even later on, once it was very clear they were there, just the infighting and people not still wanting to step up to take care of it is all an allegory about climate change.
Yeah. That
and I don't know if I want that in my D&D campaign. I kind of want to escape that for a little bit.
The magical realm where people see a problem and work to fix it together.
Right. Yeah. Everyone comes together for the greater good and trust the experts and the people who know what they're talking about to fix the problem, and everyone's better off for it. Yeah. Yeah. Can we play that game instead?
Nope. Sorry. Wrong fantasy. That's too far out there. One thing that I was thinking about is on a very different note is that while it specifies that an Allip is kind of like a binary thing, like, hey, I'm an Allip now. No going back. I do like the idea of an Allip kind of has the same origin story as a Great Old One Warlock, and maybe not so much for a PC.
Okay.
I don't think I'd go this route for a player character by any means, but I like the idea of an NPC who is struggling to hold on to their sense of self. So the idea being that, this curse overtakes somebody, and usually it's no big deal. You find a peasant, they found out too much information, boom, your brain broke, and now you're an Allip. I guess, and you're cursed. It's a combination. But this would basically be the person who saved on their charisma saving throw, and in turn, they're now haunted by these things, or maybe they even just saw too much of the being, of the entity, which is why I went with Great Old One. But it really could be any other warlock as well, because this specifically talks about demon lords. But they get the kind of this greater knowledge, and now they have a piece of it. And while the demon lord or the entity has some insight or some control on this person, the person also kind of has a bargaining chip on that entity. So you like get this exchange of like, all right, you're a warlock now. Here's a couple of warlock powers. But they still have this internal struggle of maybe being obsessed with the knowledge, or trying to keep their own self contained and not forming into this Allip. And I thought of, this plot hook of a party is hired to hunt an Allip, and then they find out that the person who hired them is the person who's being racked with this pain, with this torment. So it's basically somebody like, hey, please free me. This is horrifying. And once the party learns this, you get tons of moral issues. Where do they try and break the curse? Do they try and just end it right there and call it a day and take their money? It's always an option.
Right.
But maybe you leave some ways that they can try to break the curse, and it's like, it's something they have to fight with, and either they delay and the Allip has the chance to harm more people in that time, but then they break the cycle and bring somebody back. It's just a lot of things you can mess around with there.
Yeah, that's really cool. So like they're like half Allip,
basically, yeah. And
kinda, or you could kind of play like a werewolf.
Yep.
Like transform back and forth.
Like during the day they're a normal person, but at night they turn into an Allip, and
or just like times of
forest.
distress when they can't like keep things together.
Yeah, or almost like I'm gonna say a Nagpa curse. Man, we haven't talked about the Nagpa in a while.
Oh wow,
that's a shame.
Yeah, it's been a while. We should do a Nagpa redux.
Yeah. For no reason other than just talk about the Nagpa again.
Right.
But the idea that when they learn knowledge, when they do get closer to it, they have to make another charisma saving throw, which is just the mechanical interpretation of it. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
But they learn more information, and while it gets them closer, it maybe gets them more powerful. It also makes them struggle with this even harder, and they turn into their Allip form until they do X, Y, and Z. Until I impart this knowledge on somebody else, I am trapped in this form. And it's this constant cycle of like, okay, great, I'm out of the form, and now I need to learn more. I need to get more information. Hey, I got more information. Turns into an Allip, imparts it on somebody, rinse and repeat.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot. You mentioned like a Great Old One patron.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could absolutely make this like your a PC's struggle.
You could. I think you could.
Where I wouldn't have them fully transform.
No.
It's just kind of more like during times of distress or things like that. They seem to be barely holding it together. It's kind of like in the first Critical Role, and then Legends of Vox Machina.
Yep.
Percy.
Yep.
Yeah, with the smoke and the demons starting to come out.
Finally, somebody gets the reference. Oh, I've been holding these Critical Role references back for so long. Thank you, animated series.
I was gonna say that is about the extent of my entire knowledge. So
that's all you need. No, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
And a little bit of the third campaign. But
yeah.
I kind of fell behind and then gave up.
I don't blame you. The first, it's not the time or place.
No, it's just a lot of material.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that stuff sort of starts happening, and maybe they're adventuring to try and figure out to get strong. They feel like if they get strong enough, they could just quash this internally and it's be fine. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. Maybe in adventuring and leveling up, they get like their own personal quest where they find ways to finally end this, things like
Yeah.
that. But as they get stronger as a warlock with the great old one patron's powers, this kind of curse aspect gets stronger too.
Yeah, and I think it makes for a really nice flavor of warlock that I won't say I never see, but I like that information seeking warlock. Heck, this would
Mm-hmm.
probably be really good for a lore bard multi-class.
Oh yeah,
But that concept of they just are seeking out more information, and they feel this drive to learn. And to a humble outsider, they're like, oh, this person just loves learning. Nothing wrong with that. But realizing that every piece of information that they are interested in seems to be towards darker topics, necromancy or demons or whatever, just building and building until you have those moments where they learn too much and snap in some fashion. As you said, it doesn't need to be like a full transformation or anything,
right.
but the smoke monster from I don't even remember the name. I've watched all of Critical Role season 1, but names are hard. But whatever, the smoke monster that Percy has haunting him is a perfect thing to steal from. That I get the feeling a lot of our listeners will know what I'm talking about.
Right. It's also a good way, the kind of reluctant warlock, another cool take that we don't see a lot. They
Yeah,
could be, say, a ranger and then stumble upon terrible knowledge and get forced to multiclass into a warlock. And for maybe more information on how viable that multiclass would be, you could check out our previous episode, Ranger Warlock.
Episodes.
It's true. We have
Oh yeah,
the
there's
original
2
and
Ranger
the
Warlocks
redux.
now. Yeah, check out the new one. The original was from 2018.
Any other like thoughts on setup? I wanted to go back to kind of fighting it a little bit if we didn't have anything else.
No.
One thing that you could do is, if you don't want to deal with the secret as a plot hook, you can still use these in the sense that the information truly is so dangerous that it needs to go away. A la the funniest joke in the world from Monty Python. If anyone's ever seen that, the idea is this guy writes a joke so funny that anyone who reads it dies, and they eventually turn it into a military weapon. But yeah, you never expose. It's freaking hilarious. But you never expose what the actual secret is.
Sure.
You just have to deal with it. And this whatever it was spread through like a mage's college, and every single wizard's like, what is this coolest thing you've ever figured out? And everyone gets obsessed with it. It virally spreads through the entire university, and now it's just filled with Allips. And so you have to go do it and then burn down the university or something.
I like
And then
that.
you never get to learn what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to
That kind
know
of like bigger
this.
sweet thing. Right.
Yeah. And there to up the ante a little bit, because turning a PC into an Allip is probably not a good idea unless it's a one shot. This is actually a fantastic one shot idea. But if you had like an NPC along for the ride, they're the ones who hired you, and they're like, well, I just need to check out what's going on. And as like the party figures out that it's like, oh, it's the information, it's whatever they learned, whatever they're writing about that these wizards were working towards, the information, once they find it, everything stops, and they've all become these ghostly creatures. And your adventuring companion who hired you is like, okay, I gotta know, like the draw is too strong, and you watch them become an Allip as well, kind of, and that like kind of reveals the entire thread of it.
Yeah, if I was in that one shot, I think I would. My personal, like Ellie's personal curiosity would get the best of me.
You'd be like,
and they're like, all right,
I'll sacrifice this character.
Beloved PC, I love you, but I need this.
Yeah,
I do like I like doing that to people though. That what is it? It's like, don't worry about it. It's the case from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I mean that's used tons of times. Even everything in H.P. Lovecraft, not everything, but a lot of stuff in H.P. Lovecraft history is around that idea of knowledge that is just, it's forbidden, or once known, you can't comprehend it. And it's like, well, what's the knowledge? It doesn't matter. It could be a recipe for guacamole. It's a really good recipe, but it's cursed, so you can't have it. Cursed guacamole.
Well, just the recipe. If someone were to just coincidentally make guacamole and it like happened to fit that exact recipe, would it be
It's
a
fine.
problem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guacamole's fine. It's the recipe.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that they know the exact grams of shallots to use, and that just ruins it. I've never actually put shallots in guacamole, but I think it would taste good.
Don't know.
Not the right podcast for it.
No.
Got it. All right. No, that's a great idea, Will. I might use that one day. I might just steal that. So what I was going to say around the combat aspect of it, going back to that, is that at CR5 this can be a bit of an odd fight. By itself, I think a level 4 or 5 party would probably destroy this thing pretty quickly. Level 6, especially, as you saw with us. I think we were level 5 at the time.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to take care of it, especially if they have magic weapons.
Yeah. Well,
and
you guys
two
had two
paladins.
paladins. That's what destroyed it.
And
Two paladins.
2 paladins.
Yeah, this is very party makeup dependent.
Yes.
Because if you don't have, no magic weapons, no way to do like radiant, psychic, or force damage. There might be another one we're missing there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it effectively has double health.
Yeah. So that's just something to be kind of aware of. And if it's a level 2 or 3 party, I think this could wipe them out very easily. I mean, just taking away their turns basically as often as it wants. I guess not as often, because it only gets to do 1d8 plus 3 psychic. No, I'm sorry. That's 2d8 plus 3 psychic damage when it does that, and it's a recharge 3 or 6 ability. But regardless, it can do a lot of damage. The 46 plus 3 damage against a level 2 or level 3 party is like a one-hit kill. So just things to keep in mind. You probably don't want to fight this or have this against a low-level party. So even though it's a challenge rating 5 and the little encounter dial says that this is going to be a medium encounter, just because they're level 3, they might die. They might die. Just to be aware of that. As you mentioned earlier, they effectively have 80 HP because they are resistant to nearly everything.
Yeah, resistant or immune, yeah.
Some ways that you can kind of tweak that around, of course, is if you, I guess, wanted to throw it against a low-level party, that's fine. I guess I wouldn't throw this against a low-level party. I would rather add minions and make them fight against a higher-level party and just accept it'll work better that way.
Yeah, it has a weird difficulty curve. It goes from being incredibly deadly to just going to be stomped into the ground over a course of like 1 or 2 level difference.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also one that I don't think works well with just adding more. Like if I have 3 Allips, I guess you could do like, okay, one does its Whispers of Madness, the other does its Howling Babble, and then one does the Maddening Touch. And then the other one's just like constantly going to be doing the Whispers of Madness because that's up to 60 feet. And then the other 2 are just going to keep doing a Maddening Touch. It's possible, but it just doesn't feel like a particularly great fight. And if PCs keep failing, it's just bad. It's not going to work well for them. Again, those burning reactions might not be the end of the world, but it hurts. And with the chance for them to basically a 50% chance that Howling Babble's going to come back on that recharge 6, it can be pretty bad pretty quick.
Right. Yeah. With 3 of them, you would probably always have a Howling Babble available.
Right.
Like by the time the third one uses it, the first one has a decent chance of getting it back.
Yeah. So just things to keep in mind. I definitely think you could fall into the trap of looking at its stat block and saying, oh, this is going to be a really good fight against my level 4 party. And then it's like, it was okay. Unless you're really either fine with that, which is totally cool to just make this a easy medium fight that the party is just doing for the role play reasons. But if you want it to be difficult, you're going to have to bump it up a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I think that's it with the Allip.
And speaking of bumping up, there's nothing I love bumping up more than our affiliates, The Crafty Gamer. The Crafty Gamer is a site that offers a variety of TTRPG-inspired goods, just merchandise, whatever. They have candles, t-shirts, soaps, and you, our lovely listeners, and anyone you give this code to, can get 10% off your order using the code MM10. Notice how we try to use MM10 on all of it? It's because it's simple. It rolls off the tongue. 10. Tasty 10. This guacamole is delicious because of the shallots that you added. Can you please give me the recipe? So yeah, check them out. Helps out the show, which we always appreciate. Check it out. Check out the Crafty Gamer. Tons of stuff on there. Have gotten a lot of candles from there, and those are what I particularly use because they set the mood. So I could do a graveyard and throw some Allips in there because they're just powered up ghosts. That works for me. And as usual, thank you to our patrons, Jeff W., Joe P., Vincent M., Isaac M., Sentinel D20, Star Shinobi, Adam A., Ed G., Bob F., Craig A., Brian H., Luca L., Rob K., and Muddlewit.
Yeah. And as always, thanks for watching.